How you folks doing? So, a hippie's riding on a public bus when a nun comes on board and sits down in the seat next to him, and the hippie says to himself, wow, that's a pretty cute looking nun. I wonder if maybe I can get her to change her mind about a few things. Well, nuns appreciate honesty. Maybe I should try the honest approach. So the hippie looks at the nun and says to her, he says, excuse me, sister, but would you like to have sex with me? The nun appreciates his honesty, but she looks at him and says very directly, no, unfortunately, that goes against my beliefs, my son. Nun gets off at the next stop. The hippie, he's dumbfounded and a little upset. He figured, well, if I took the honest approach, that'd have to work, right? The bus driver can see that the hippie's clearly upset, and he says to the hippie, he goes, look, son, I know something about that sister that maybe will help you out. And he's like, what is it? And he goes, I happen to know that every morning and every afternoon she takes the same bus route to her convent and then to the graveyard. And at the graveyard, she always goes to one particular grave where she prays for guidance and forgiveness from God. I think if you want to get that nun in the sack, you should dress up as God, show up at that cemetery, and convince the nun to sleep with you. Hippie says, you know, that's a pretty good idea. I think I'll give that a shot. Bus driver nods his head. Hippie gets off the bus, walks down to a costume shop, and asks for a costume, something holy, you know, like sort of Moses, Jesus, something Old Testament looking. Costume shop hooks him up. He goes, gets ready, and heads on over to the cemetery. Sure enough, that night, he sees the nun there, full garb, has her nun habits on, and it's dark out, and she's at this grave praying, asking for forgiveness from her sins and the decisions she's made in her past life. And the hippie finally decides now's the time to act, you know, get himself a little piece of this nun. So he slowly walks up and he goes, I have heard your prayers and I have decided that I will answer them, but only if you will have sex with me. And the sister, completely dumbfounded, just amazed by what she's seeing here, says, well, very well, Lord, but I asked that in order to keep the vows that I made that we only have anal sex so that I can keep my virginity. Well, the hippie's thinking, hey, you know, a piece is a piece. So he's like, very well. And they commence having at it. And when the hippie finishes up, he decides now's the time to reveal himself. And he rips off his costume and he goes, ha ha, it was really me, the hippie from the bus. And the nun looks at him strangely for a second and then throws off the nun habits and the whole get up and goes, ha ha, it's really me, the bus driver.